If you're into games like Valheim, then Enshrouded must have appeared on your For You page or in your feed at some point. Everyone that covers this game kinda says the same thing.
And it's basically Valheim on steroids.
My most anticipated game this month is a survival game, and
The survival game of our dreams is coming out in just 2 weeks.
And like you heard, that thing is Enshrouded is basically Valheim but on steroids. So in about a week from this video, Enshrouded will be released in early access over on Steam. Now, we are not here to specifically talk about Enshrouded, but about a challenge that I'm initiating upon myself after seeing that the release date has been so close. Because see, as you can tell, I've put nearly 60 hours into Valheim, about 50 of that before I started recording this little video. Now, I have only made it up until the second boss in Valheim to this date. Yes, since the release of Valheim, I've put 50 hours into this game, and I only ever got to the second boss, not even seeing the third boss whatsoever. So with that, I have one simple challenge for myself. Can I beat, or can I get further than I've ever gotten before in Valheim before Enshrouded releases? I started recording last week, so here is the recap of week 1 of trying to beat Valheim before Enshrouded comes out. We start off with looking at my character. I have a character in full iron armor, but for this challenge, I decided to start new. I get greeted by the giant mythical raven that helps me through this land, and then I move on to do the basic tutorial things where I start punching the nearest tree, and then the annoying little greylings start showing up, or the first of many. I do hope that they stop spawning at some point, but I start punching him, getting some materials, and then later on I'm moving to just sneaking around, killing my first boar, and just getting those basic resources rolling within Valheim. Obviously, I have done this part so many times that the 50 hours basically contains or entails just doing the first 2 bosses over and over again. After that, it is time to further along the tutorial and build my first workbench, and then also try and set up my first base. I try and stick near the altar because I want to make a portal eventually here so that I can easily teleport between various points of interest. And right behind here, you see a speed lapse of me building my first little settlement. Obviously, I'm a builder. When it comes to Minecraft and several other games, I like the building aspect more, but for this series, for these recording sessions, I've decided that buildings need to serve a purpose. They need to serve the purpose for what I'm doing right there. So right now, it just needs a simple bed, it needs a chest, and it needs to be inhabitable. I need to be able to sleep there. There's no need for forges or anything just yet, so this doesn't need to be my main base. That is something that I make a mistake of in many of these games, where I want the first place that I build to be my main base. That's not feasible. Like I said, I want to have various bases that serve a particular purpose. So this base just serves the purpose for the tutorial, for me to spend the night, and for me to get the main resources that I need in this area so that I can beat the first boss. Having not played this game in a while, I forget that a campfire can only be placed on the ground. So I decided to do the ingenious thing of just making a hole in the base. Because why do I spend all that time working on a house when I can just put some holes in the floor and just make a fire through there? It ends up looking really stupid. It's a 2x2 hole that is just in my base right there. It is still there right now, and the only thing it serves is just to make room for the fire. I don't know why I did it. I think it's really stupid, but we're keeping it in. After a little while of gathering resources, building weapons, and building the armor needed to beat the first boss, I make my way over to the sacrificial altar that is known on my map. I find the sacrificial altar not too far from the one that's marked on my map, and decide, you know what, fighting this boss doesn't really matter. let's just do it here. I have all the resources, I have the fire arrows on me, I am prepared for this fight, and it goes exactly how you would have imagined. I got hit a few times, but with the armor that I have, it doesn't do too much damage. I wasn't fearing for my life in any way, shape, or form, and in the end, I take down the boss and get the antlers needed to make the pickaxe so that I can go into the Black Forest and on to the next part of the game. With this also comes the sacrifice at the altar, and obviously the power of the deer is the most useful. I'm still using it right now, even after defeating the second boss. But with that also comes, like I said, the pickaxe, which I can now use to mine resources in the Black Forest, and that is exactly where I'm going. I've explored around a little bit, so I know exactly where there's a patch of Black Forest that I want to make my second base at, and that is where I'll be heading, and that is where I'll be exploring and trying to do my best. Having found this little patch of the meadows near the Black Forest, I decided that this is where I want to make my second base. Now, I know that eventually I need to make a forge and some more storage, so here you have another speed lapse of me trying, or a time lapse of me trying to build this base. It's a little bit weird at first because I'm trying to see if the whole, if I can get everything connected to the floor with pillars. I know that height and things connected is very big within Valheim. I'm trying to build according to normal structure rules, but obviously Valheim doesn't work like that. Doesn't matter. Ooh, I lost my balance there for a second. Doesn't matter. I just end up building a slightly bigger base, and obviously they're modular. I can make them bigger. I can expand them a little bit more if I need more room or if I need more resources. And with that base done, with me having a little base of action for in the Black Forest, I make my way into the Black Forest to look for copper ore, because that's exactly what I need. I forgot about tin ore completely, but I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But no, I move along and I find my first copper vein ore, or copper ore vein, in the Black Forest, and I just start mining away. Now, I've beaten several trolls in my time, but after the very first time of me coming out of the Black Forest after just mining, this troll, I feel like it's locked onto me, but I hide. I don't want to fight it just yet because I know trolls are incredibly difficult to fight this early on. So I just sneak around, hope it loses me in the rain, and then I just continue along my way. It was a little bit scary there for a moment. After the night is over, I decided to sleep, and the troll was still there. Now, somehow I felt brave enough to try and get on this battle. I had some fire arrows on me. I was like, you know what? If I keep my distance, I will do just fine. But there were a bunch of gray dwarfs that came with the troll, and I was like, you know what, I got this. I've done these fights so many times. I totally got this. So I'm stamina managing, I'm kiting him around. I am in full control of this situation until I die. I don't remember exactly what happened. The video will obviously show it, but this is the first time that I die. I try to take on some of the dwarves, some of the gray dwarves. I try to get crowd control in there. I activate the deer powers to just manage this as best as possible, but sadly, it does end up in my death. Now, with me dying so close to my corpse, I'm able to defeat the troll not much later, and then I also discover that there is a burial grounds, or like a burial thing right next to my camp, which is very important because I need those cores in order to build a smelter and a charcoal kiln. So I make my way. I know there's the burial chambers is what they're called. It's, I know there's skeletons in there. I know this can be quite difficult so early on. Also, I'm using a spear, not the most optimal weapon against skeletons, but I'm not too worried about that just yet. I just want to explore. I want to see if I can find some some cores early on in the burial chambers to get those things going, to get the smelting going, to get me going on that armor. But sadly, that's not the case, and I just end up dying again. Day 7 is not really a good day for me because after recovering my stuff and trying to dive deeper into the burial chambers, I end up dying again. And that 3 times in one day. I just, what's going on? After dying 2 times in the burial chambers, or in that particular burial chambers, I just decided to move on. I mine a little bit, I get some more resources, and then I come across another burial chamber, and that is where I actually find the very first of the cores. Now I need 10 in total, so it does take me a little bit in order to gather all of them, but in the end, I do it, obviously. I make some progress. But yeah, getting my first core was a very exciting moment for me. After mining some more resources, I get attacked. The forest is moving. This event is where a bunch of grey dwarves just start swarming your base. I had so many of them. I had brutes, I had shamans, I had normal grey dwarves. The whole gang was here to just mess with me. Now, I was confident that I could beat the regular ones and even the shaman, but the brute was a problem. I didn't have the gear nor the weapons to take on this hulking grey dwarf, so I had to take my distance, and sadly, I end up dying here as well. It didn't have much effect. They didn't attack my base any further. I take some big losses here. Yeah, I just die again. And here we go to another moment that I die. We go into another burial chamber and I manage to get another core, but then I'm cornered by 3 skeletons and I'm in this super narrow hallway. I basically cornered myself. There's nowhere to go. There's 3 skeletons and a ghost just there, and I didn't have the stamina to hold up, so I just die again. Luckily, this death is rewarded because I do make my way further into that burial chamber and I find more cores and the location of the Elder. After going through many more burial chambers and just going back in, going back out, doing my best, I finally get the last cores that I need. It takes me forever. I had to lock several skeletons behind doors, like a two-star skeleton. I had to hide behind a door because he was just too powerful for me to take on. But in the end, like I said, I find the cores that I need and I make the smelter and the charcoal kiln so that I can start getting better equipment and hopefully make these runs a little bit more smooth. As I try and make my way towards the Elder's location to explore that area, I figured, you know, why not? You can pin things on a map, you can mark things, so let's just do that. After a while, I also walk along the coast of the Black Forest and I find a tin deposit and I'm like, no, I already have access to tin. It was flint. I had access to flint instead. So I was, you know what? I need more storage. I need more space with all these resources that I'm picking up. So after getting some tin, I made my way back to my base and I was like, you know what? We need to build better. We need to build stronger. So that's exactly what I did. And after that, my tin was done smelting. So I was able to finally get a bronze. And with that, a whole plethora of new equipment and new weapons opened up to me that would make things a lot easier. Now, I decided to make the spear first, the big two-handed polearm. I decided to make that first. And that weapon has been a lifesaver. I know that some do the dual wield with the buckler or a shield, and then whatever weapon is more suitable should do that because the two-handed polearm is not efficient against all enemy types, and especially with the 3rd boss coming up, I should probably get the mace for some blunt damage going. And obviously gear is not unimportant either, so I get myself a full bronze outfit, full bronze armor, replacing the deer armor that I had before. armor, or the leather armor. Seeing as I need more resources, I went ahead and I went to another copper vein that I found, or that was close to my base. But then a troll with a giant log as a weapon comes at me out of nowhere, and I misjudge his attack range every single time. So you know what happens? You know what happens? I end up dying again. And just as a fun fact, you know what happens after I get my equipment back? I die again because I misjudge his attack range again. Having encountered enough trolls, I decide my luck and try to parry one of them. It works a little bit, but not good enough. So I decide I shouldn't do that with the bronze polearm that I have. Up next, having gathered enough resources, I try and make my way to the Elder. Now, the Elder is on another island, so I make my way to the farthest point that I can imagine, have a little base there, and then I make myself a raft because I don't have the materials or the blueprint yet for a boat. I make my way through the Black Forest to find the altar of the Elder, and I realize that I'm one seed short. So I make my way into the Black Forest to find the brutes that I need in order to get the seed. And then having realized or having gotten that seed, I make a little base just in case something happens, or just in case I die and I have to make my way back. So I make a small base next to the altar, or close enough to the altar, and then I spawn the Elder. Now, the Elder fight goes pretty much how you would expect. I know how the fight goes, I know what he summons, I know what his attacks are, because I've done it a few different times. But what I did not expect was that my flimsy bow and arrow would end up failing mid-fight. That is right, my bow just lost all durability somewhere in the middle of the fight, and I make a plea. I make a Hail Mary towards the little base that I made in order to repair my bow. Now, I was completely sure, because I was fumbling, I wasn't getting close to it. I needed to get closer. I had to destroy a wall in order to get even close to the workbench. So I was pretty sure that I would end up dying there, and my base along with it, because the Elder was right there. But luckily, everything worked out in my favor, and I managed to beat the Elder as well. Having beat the Elder, you can see it here. Well, obviously, I have to fight a Grey Dwarf brute first, but I make my way back to the altar, and then I put the Elder's head onto the altar, allowing me to have its powers. Its powers say that you can chop wood faster, which I don't really care for right now, but hey, it's another boss that I beat. After beating the Elder and knowing that I can just easily walk around in the Black Forest, there's only one thing left for me to do, and that is to look for the swamp. Now, I walk far and wide trying to look for the swamp, because I'm really hoping that it's on the same island as I am at. Sadly, it is not, and I walk around so much. I try and explore all of the nooks and crannies that I can on this island, but sadly, I walk for about like an hour, 2 hours of regular playing time, just trying to look for the swamp, but in the end, I can't find anything. So what I end up doing is just a little bit of cheating in order to further along the game. I type in my seed number or my seed code into one of those websites, and it loads this beautiful picture right here, which is basically my seed and everything that's in it. And it lines up, it shows exactly where I spawned, and it lines up with all the other things I've explored as well. So I have a certain set plan. I want to go here. I want to go to that spot. I want to go to that part of the Black Forest. I want to go to that island so I can explore that piece of swamp right there. That is my game plan. So what I'm doing right now is to set up the portal system that I have in mind. I do want to make this little base that I have here in the meadows. I want to make that my main base, or at least I want to try that and have functional bases along the way. So I want to have a portal from that base to the altar, and then from the other base to the swamp area. That's kind of how I envision it. So here you can see me placing down a portal, or making that first connection from the Black Forest base to the altar. Obviously, since I only have a simple raft at my disposal, I figured, you know what, if I stick close enough to the coast, those serpents will never get me. So it is a very long and slow journey towards the place where I need to go. And lo and behold, I even tell myself, no, there's no way a serpent is going to show up. No way. Guess what shows up? Guess what destroys my raft? Guess what makes me stuck on an island that I am unfamiliar with, and I'm in the middle of the Black Forest. Now, granted, the Black Forest doesn't scare me all that much anymore, but I don't have access to a workbench. I have access to nothing. So I'm stranded there. Luckily, I did bring the materials with me in order to make a teleporter, so I do my initial plan. I make my way to the particular part of the island that I am looking for, so that I can explore that part of the that part of the swamp that I had envisioned. After a very, very long journey of just walking and walking and walking, I finally get to my ideal destination, or at least that's what I thought. So I flatten the earth around me, make a workbench, and put down a portal so that I can go back and forth in order to repair my stuff if necessary. After that, the exploring of the swamp starts. The undead Vikings of the swamp, I remember them being a lot more difficult than I had imagined. From what I remember, they would kick my ass all the time, but they happen to be a lot weaker than I remember. So going into the swamp initially, I kill some of the leeches, I kill some of the blobs, and I also kill some of the undead Vikings. The Draugr, I think, are what they called. I finish some of those off as well, and I just continue along exploring, hoping to find those sunken crypts that I need in order to get the next gear progression, which is iron. Now, exploring the swamp is not without its risks, and here you have another one of those risks. I was taking a lot of damage from the Draugr and skeletons, so I was running away as a good boy. I was running away because I didn't want to die and I want to explore more of this place. I get an arrow in the back and I end up dying. Good thing that I placed that teleporter, so this death wasn't that big of a setback. But you know what was a setback? Exploring the entire part of the swamp and not finding one sunken crypt. I found 0 of them. In this part of the swamp that I was willing to explore, just this part though. I didn't explore the top part because I had to make a boat or a raft and I couldn't swim that far, so I didn't explore that. There could totally be sunken crypts there, but then the part that I chose to explore, there was nothing. I walked far and wide, came across abominations, and I actually end up dying again due to the wraith that comes out at night. Was not a good time, but deaths are luckily not that huge of a setback because I have a teleporter so close. But it was kind of frustrating not finding a single crypt after exploring the everywhere in that swamp. Now, the swamp kept being kind to me because at some point a 1-star Draugr archer just decided to chase me across the ends of the earth. He kept chasing me. He chased me for, I felt like 5 minutes, all the way from the swamp, across parts of the mountain, back into the meadows. And you know how I eventually lost him? He got distracted shooting at boars. He got distracted shooting at boars, and that's how I managed to get away, because I was not going to lead him towards the portal, because that was my first train of thought, that I should go through the portal, but he would have probably destroyed it if I would have gone through that. After several setbacks and not finding any sunken crypts in that part of the swamp, I decided there's only one thing to do, and that is to move the little base that I have. So I destroy the portal, I destroy the workbench, and I decide to go into the other direction, the swamp that I had originally crossed already, and decide to set up camp there so that I can hopefully explore that part and find some sunken crypts. Now, peculiarly, there's this little strip of swamp inside of the Black Forest. I originally thought it was this circle indicating the trader that is in the game, but no, there is a sunken crypt in this little patch of swamp. Not in the big patch that I chose to explore, but this little piece of shit. I was infuriated, but you know, I did what any adventurer would do. I set up my teleporter close, or I think that's what I did later on. I went to explore, see how difficult it was. I mined my first little bits of iron scrap, and then I set up my teleporter so that I could ferry that in between. Because yes, I did change that setting, because I think it's incredibly annoying that you have to basically, or that you cannot ferry the items through teleporters. I get it if they're super magical, but resources like that, nah, I changed that. So I can move items through teleporters. So seeing as this is the first sunken crypt that I come across, I want to maximize the output from it. Like you already saw, I put the teleporter very close, and I just continue exploring and looting and chopping away at the muddy piles in order to get as much iron scrap as I possibly can, because the more I get from this tiny piece, the more gear I can craft, and the better I will be able to explore all the other parts of the swamp when I eventually get there. Having felt like I explored that sunken crypt enough, I make my way to the edge of the other part of the swamp. Now, this edge is in the Black Forest, so I'm expecting some resistance, but I do think that I'm somewhat safe to build my stuff here. Now, I do end up making the workbench first, and then putting down trying to put down the portal so that I can get started with ferrying everything around. Now, I'm not too sure about the location. I want everything to be neat and tidy, so I try and flatten or level the ground a little bit more, but sadly, I attract a lot of attention with that. There are some leeches, another wraith comes at me, and in the end, that causes me to die. Now, this death is probably the most devastating death that I've had in this series, because all my gear and the materials needed to make a teleporter are in another place. I don't have a raft, though granted, the raft is not difficult to build. So I could technically I could have chosen to actually just get there by foot again and just accept the setback. But let me tell you, I'm not like that. I've cheated in games before, and I know there are console cheats or console commands that you can put in Valheim. So that's exactly what I did. I activated the fly command, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna fly to my corpse, and that's it. But before I give up these powers, I decided, you know what? Let me just mark all of the sunken crypts that I can find in this part of the swamp, because I don't want to get disappointed again. No, this swamp had a gazillion of them. I think it ended up having like 6 or 7 crypts, so I was very, very happy with that. Now, there's this little island of meadows right near the Black Forest and the swamp, right where that intertwines. And I'm like, you know what? The meadows is safe. It's far enough from everything. It's a little island that you need to swim towards. So I'm going to make the little base here. That's exactly what I did. I deactivated the flight command. I deactivated the console commands. So I no longer have access to that. I just wanted to streamline this process. I want to play the game in a way that is comfortable for me. And sometimes I cheat because I don't mind doing it. Regardless, I realized that I hadn't gotten pine before, and I also have the iron polearm now, and with that, I take down this troll super easily. Like, it's actually great that I can just parry a troll's attack now and not get staggered from it myself. I take down this troll like it's nothing, and I feel greatly accomplished doing so. Now, the first week of recording sessions ends with me getting the iron pickaxe. So after 1 week of playing Valheim and trying to get further than I've ever gotten before, I basically got back to where I was before. My character, as you can tell from, or as you could probably remember from the starting screen, had full iron armor, but never beaten the third boss. I am very close to getting iron armor, and I already know what I need to summon the third boss and where the summoning location is. So hopefully in a week's time from now, right before Enshrouded hits, I might be able to actually beat the third or even the fourth boss. The fourth boss is the goal. And hopefully with that, I will be able to have gotten further. I don't know if I'm going to beat the game, but I definitely think that I will be able to get further than ever before. And maybe I'll wrap up this series as well before I start Enshrouded. Now, Enshrouded is a game that is on my list, that has been on my list forever, and I do think it's going to be great. Pal World might also distract me. That's coming up in like in 2 days from now. Pal World is going to be releasing, so that might also distract me for a little bit. But anyway, that is the recap of the first week of recording. We currently have one more week to go before Enshrouded hits, and hopefully you'll see one more video of me trying to do Valheim. So this is the Valheim week 1 recap. Next up, or the next time you see me, you'll have the Valheim week 2 recap, and hopefully I have gotten further by then. But for now, that's all that I want to mention. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.